I thought rebuilding my life just meant changing my career, my finances, my environment, my circumstances. But I'm realizing the hardest part of rebuilding your life is rebuilding your relationship with yourself. And so today I want to talk about this on a more deeper level. The video I made, the last video, touched on this on a surface level aspect of it, where I talked about the fact that when we don't take care of ourselves, we become bitter Betty, right? And that is just my way of thinking through it. But as I thought about this and had experiences that kind of brought this deeper message, I want to go a little bit deeper on it. For those who probably feel this way and want to put some language around it, want to understand what's going on, and want to understand what are some of these hidden ways that we abandon ourselves without even realizing it. So I have some points written down just so I stay structured. So if you see me looking up there, I'm just looking at my laptop. But these are things that are not just in the present, and these are things that we have to dig a little bit deeper to really understand why. Now, I'm not a therapist, and this is not by any means telling you the only way to handle the situation. This is just my experiences, things that I'm learning about myself as I'm in my rebuild season and so forth. So the first point is self-abandonment is not always obvious. Sometimes we think abandoning others no, sometimes we think abandoning ourselves looks like giving up on our dreams, which that is a form of abandoning ourselves. But sometimes it looks like ignoring our own needs because we're trying so hard to make everything else work. And these could be like through many different ways, right? It could be ignoring exhaustion, constantly adjusting, not listening to your own feelings, putting yourself last. So this point really hits home for me because if you're an eldest daughter like myself, you probably could resonate. I took care of my siblings, mainly my little sister, because my brother and I are closer to age. And I've always been taking care of people. I was taking care of myself. I literally was raising myself from I was in high school. And also running an entire household. Way too much responsibility for a little teenager. But that has been my life. And those experiences just changed. Those responsibilities just changed as I grew older. But there was always something that I felt I was responsible for. And more directly, just being the glue to keep everything together. That brings a lot of exhaustion. I never had language for this when I was younger. I remember when I was in college and I was working nonstop, right? This over functioning behavior started within my household, right? But it transitioned into my work because I also saw my dad working excessively from I was a kid. And I think I picked up on that from him because I was around him the most in my teenage years. But when I got to college, I was on my own for the first time, so I had to work to pay my bills and so forth, right? But I was working nonstop. Every available shift that came up, I would take it. And so was working from 7 a.m. in the mornings. I think I worked until 9. I went to classes 9 to 11. Then some days I had a class 11 to 12:20. Some days I went back to work for that period. Then I went back to class, and I went back to work, and I was just in between classes and work. Or on some days when I had extracurricular activities, because I was the leader of many different clubs. I was president for clubs. I was volunteer for clubs, and I had internships and so forth. So I was just juggling a lot of tasks in between my days. So my work day would start 7 a.m. and sometimes go up until 11 p.m., which was when my place of employment at the time closed. So I was just busy all day from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. Sometimes even earlier than that, because of course I have to get up, I have to prepare myself for work. And then later than that, because I had assignments that I had to do when I get home. And this is not just 5 days a week. I was also working on Sundays and Saturdays as well because I was working at an event center and they had events all week. And so when the pandemic hit and nobody was going to work, we were all working from home, classes were online, everything was online. That was the first time when I got to sit down with myself and just really not have anywhere to be. And I did not know what to do with myself because obviously when I was in high school, I was going to school from I think 8:30 until 2:30. Then I came home. I have to grab my little sister, pick her up, prepare dinner, iron, go back to school, then it's time to bed. So I never really had free moments like that because it always felt like I had something to do and to fill it with. And so when I had that moment in college when the pandemic hit and I was just literally having more time than I didn't having more time to rest than I had things to do. It was complete chaos. And I literally felt like I fell into a depressive episode because I just never had any time like this. And I don't know, I felt like I was just so obsessed with working that I couldn't rest. That was a time when I actually started to realize like I need to manage this, I need to balance this, but I did not know how to do it. And so I started to feel guilty about resting. I would always feel like people were lazy if they were just laying around, sitting around, not doing anything. So I started to feel like I was falling into that category as well. And I started to feel my body break down. That was the first time when I actually started to feel like I was really burnt out, but because I was so working a lot and so active, I didn't have any time to notice it. I didn't have any time to feel anything. That was the first time when I had the opportunity to not put myself last. And I did a very terrible job. And I really wanted to get back to work. I really wanted to go back into things because I started feeling a lot of different emotions that I just didn't know what to do with it. I started going to therapy around that time too to try to see if I could get some help with identifying what was going on. And I didn't really have much success in that area at the time, probably because I was also kind of closed off to it because in Jamaica, therapy has a very bad stigma, like you're crazy if you're going to the therapist. Now it's very different, but at the time, because I grew up in Jamaica, it was never a thing that was pushed towards like taking care of your mental health. So I didn't know what to do with this information. It was just like, okay, right? So I think that was part of the reason why it never worked out the way that I wanted, but nevertheless, that's what happened there. And I eventually got back into working, but I noticed something different happened after I had this pausing period. And if you're watching up to this far in the video, please consider subscribing and stay until the end because the other points are also going to be just as great as this one. But I noticed the way that I worked after I came out of the pandemic shifted. I noticed that I started to feel a lot more exhausted quicker. I started to feel drained quicker. It was easier for me to spot these things, which was terrifying because now I wasn't able to push through as much as I was able to push through before I got the break. It's like my body just kind of was done. And from that point forward, I feel like I'm still in this space where I am now trying to listen to my body again. I'm now trying to prioritize myself again. I'm now trying to see how much I have really been indirectly abandoning myself again. And I can tell you this time around seeing it is probably more painful than the first time because now I'm a lot older, now I'm a lot more aware. And now not just aware of the fact that I have just been ignoring my body, but aware of the fact that this is not the life that I desire to live in. I don't want to feel like I am not truly showing up as my best self, which it leads into the next point, which is awareness is progress. I've said many times that awareness changes your life, not because awareness alone is going to change your life, but because awareness gives you the option to do something about it. So I said, one thing I'm learning is that healing is not linear. You can make progress and still have moments where old patterns show up. A moment where you fall behind isn't an old habit. No, a moment where you fall behind into an old habit does not erase the progress you've made. This is something that I've had to sit with because I said I went through that burnout period before a couple of years ago and I thought I had walked through it. I thought I'd gotten through it. I thought I was more equipped. I thought, I was better for it and I got some rest and I was ready to go back to work. But I'm realizing that the rest is not just sleeping, one. The rest is not just a physical thing, two, sitting and not doing anything. It's also a mental thing but it's also that it's an intentional process. It's not just sitting down, sleeping, taking a couple months off work, and then going back into the same environment with the same patterns. Because if nothing changes, nothing changes. So now I'm faced with the fact that I did take time to rest forcibly because it was a pandemic, but I went back to work with the same patterns of overfunctioning, of overworking, of overbeing, of overgiving, of overperforming. And then I ended up back into that same spot of depletion because I am abandoning myself without even realizing it. And because, as I've said, I am the eldest daughter, this is all I've known. So I'm not going out of my way to overperform. I'm not going out of my way to overfunction. This is my natural state of being, right? That I've the natural state that I've learned to be in, because this is not natural, but it's just a natural state that I've learned to be in because it's just the environment that I've always been around and just the space that I've always had to occupy. Like I always felt like I was the glue. So I always had to do everything to just keep things flowing. And so because of that state not being adjusted, it just did not change my outcome when I went back into different work environments. And this is something that, as I said, it feels way more painful now to sit with it, because it really shows that if you're not intentional, hard work alone is not going to get you the results that you want. Yes, I've worked so hard and I've showed up with 110% to every opportunity and environment that I have been placed in, but yet still, the outcome has still just been the same. These environments are not necessarily all bad, even though they're not quite up to the standard of what I would have wanted, yes. But also the role that I play in it has a big role to in my exhaustion, in my burnout, in my frustrations, right? And so understanding that even though I started this journey a couple years ago, there are many times when I fall short, I fall back into a moment of weakness where I abandon myself again without realizing it, right? Putting myself last because I'm always used to taking care of everybody and everything, and not realizing that it's not that you're not supposed to take care of everybody and everything, but you're also not to neglect yourself, which leads into my third point. Choosing yourself does not mean choosing against others. These two things happen simultaneously, right? It says sometimes we think choosing ourselves means becoming selfish, but it actually allows us to show up better. When you take care of yourself, you don't become less loving. You become someone who can love without resentment. This, oh my God, is something that I am really dissecting mentally, because I don't know where I got the idea from that it's either me or you. I don't know where I got the idea from that I had to just deplete myself in order to make sure that things worked. And it wasn't something that I've never been taught it wasn't something I was taught. Nobody ever said this to me. I don't know where I picked it up on, and I'm just being honest. But it's just something that I realize that in my head, it's one or the other, and it really needs to be both. I literally said, yeah, in my previous video, when you don't take care of yourself, you become bitter Betty. But the deeper form of that is that sometimes we don't even realize that we're not taking care of ourselves. Because yes, it's obvious. Sometimes it's obvious, but what about the times when it's not so obvious, right? I honestly was one of those persons who used to look at some people's behavior as selfish. I am a natural giver. I love to be around generous environments. And as I said, because I have younger siblings, I've always been taking care of them. I've always tried to be in a space where I've always taken on the role of just organizing and making sure that everything works together well. Even if I try not to do it, it's just my natural reflex to environments that I'm in, right? So whenever people come around me and they're always taking, I would always feel like, man, they're so selfish. Because now I just literally gave them everything and I don't have anything for myself. And now when I'm looking at it, maybe it is selfish, but also it's understanding that they are taking from me to fill their needs. And if what I am giving are things that I need, then maybe I shouldn't give it. Not to say that I'm going to be ungenerous or disingenuous. No. not to say I'm going to be unkind or mean or anything like that, but it's also understanding that you cannot give from a empty cup. It's understand that you're not selfish if you prioritize taking care of your needs. And if everybody else is taking care of their needs and you are not taking care of yours, when you are adding to them taking care of their needs, you're going to feel like you're not considered. And you, in fact, are not considering yourself. And by you, I mean me. And this is something that I really have been learning in for a couple of years now, because I was at a space a couple of years ago where I felt like I was just completely depleted because I was just giving, and not much reciprocation from those environments. And I got to a place where I was just not giving anymore, and that was from a place of resentment. That was from a place of being bitter and angry and frustrated, and thinking that how can I give everything and people not want to give back? But now, as I'm trying to approach it from a more healthy place, it's more like I still can choose other people and take care of myself. It's not one or the other. Yes, if it's gonna be one or the other, it's definitely gonna be me taking care of myself. But I think when you take care of yourself and you're full, you are in a better place to choose other people. You're in a better place to give. You're in a better place to love. You're in a better place to share. And you're doing it because you genuinely want to do it, and not from an angry place, not from a bitter place, not from a hatred environment, not from anything but peace. And I think this is one of the main things that I'm learning in this rebuilding phase, because it's easier to make money. It's easier to change your career. It's easier to change your environments and change everything around you. But changing things internally is not as easy as we would want it to be. Like, we could literally identify the patterns and the habits that we have and try to change them, and it will take so much longer. We will literally go through different career paths, different jobs, different financial stability, different environments, and still have old patterns following us. And so those old patterns are things that we have to be a lot more intentional about than any external thing that we could ever attain. And this is why I did also say in my video yesterday, and just a deeper understanding of this is that, not yesterday, the day before, but is that sometimes it's great that we don't get everything that we desire at the time when we do, because there's so much work that we have to do in ourselves in order to be able to see things the way that they should be seen, in order to appreciate things the way that they should be appreciated, in order to show up for ourselves and the things that we actually desire in it from a more healthy, a more aligned, a more thoughtful and considerate place. And we spend a lot of times trying to get other people to choose us when we should really be choosing ourselves. So if you are in this rebuilding your life phase and you notice the areas where you are struggling, I want you to give yourself grace. This does not mean you're failing. In my second point, or wait, was it second or third? No, second, right? So I said one thing I'm learning is that healing is not linear. You can make progress and still have moments where old patterns shows up. So if you feel like you are just getting momentum, then messing up, then getting momentum, then messing up, that's a part of the healing process. You know, one thing I like to think about when I think about this is when you have bruises on your body. I had a bruise on my leg that took me so long to heal, and so many methods of addressing it before it healed. You know, the scalp came up on top of it. I thought it was healed, and then I hit it on something accidentally and it broke out again. I had to use another method to work on it, and I had to do this several times for about 2 years before that cut was healed. I think I got it from putting my foot on a coal stove. And it was really bad, and it took me so much different tries of different remedies, different solutions before it's actually fully healed now. And sometimes things can heal on the outside. The scab come on, but internally it's not healed, and those are the things that I'm talking about. So the goal is not perfection. The goal is awareness. The goal is progress. The goal is to give yourself grace and to keep trying, because all of these small moments that we choose ourselves in they will add up. We think that they only have to be big moments, and they don't. Small moments every single day are happening way more frequently than big moments. And once we keep choosing ourselves in these small moments, then it will be easier to choose ourselves in the bigger moments, because we would have developed that momentum, we would have developed that fortitude, that resilience, right? And that muscle. And so if you're falling behind, you feel like you're falling back, you're at it again, you fall off, you at it again, that's great. It means you're making progress, and you should definitely keep at it, regardless of how it feels, right? And so I just wanted to come and dig a little bit deeper on what I talked about a couple of days ago, because I've just had a different perspective, just thinking about it a little bit deeper and understanding what it really means to choose ourselves, and how many times there are hidden ways that we abandon ourselves without even recognizing it, because we are just set in the ways that we've developed, whether good or bad. All right, so if you found this video informative, please give me a like, and also share this with anybody that could resonate from this video. Comment below and let me know, what is one small way you are learning to choose yourself again. And I think the community would also benefit from hearing that as well, right? And share this with anybody that could benefit. Follow me on all social media platforms at Khrista-Lee Amor. That's Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. And I will see you in my next video tomorrow. I'll see you in my next video. Let's go make some mistakes. Bye.